कितना खौफ होता है उन शाम के अंधेरों में, कितना खौफ होता है उन शाम के अंधेरों में, पूछ उन परिंदों से जिनके घर नहीं होते। Good evening everyone, I am Mohammad Shams Khan from Lloyd Law College and I will be speaking for the motion that is inability of the drugs to foster drug invention, and instead of that an independent and a non-profit agency would take its place. As suggested by a famous author that drugs are not always necessary but belief in recovery always is. It is immoral to call patents moral, as it is having such a system where it devoids millions of people access to life-saving drugs. Perhaps one could suggest that it is moral to award the mind of the work, but this should not be done at all cost, and there should be an overriding effect to alleviate human pain and suffering. It seems that the current patent industry is getting oblivious to it. Now taking some renowned examples of who invented the drugs. Manuel Potero, the inventor of the famous malaria vaccine drugs, denied the patent of $168 million, and instead of that, he decided to donate it to the WHO as he thought that the benefit should go to the entire mankind. Similarly, Albert Sabin, the inventor of the non-invasive polio vaccine drug, he denied the patents, and instead of that, he decided to donate it to the University of Toronto for just $1. The research slate in these pharmaceutical companies does not start with a clean slate instead of the ideas and innovation which have been previously worked on. It is the presence of scientific information in the public domain that allows these pharmaceutical companies to have their resources and a source of R&D. Taking the example of AZT, zenovidine, an HIV/AIDS drug which was first synthesized by Michigan Cancer Institute in 1964, funded by NIC, but it was rejected and it was too toxic to treat leukemia. But in 1988, Malcolm Burroughs applied for it and got it patented in order to treat HIV/AIDS. Now, lack of government intervention and transparency allow these pharmaceutical companies to charge exorbitant prices and have the public to believe that they are justified in order to recoup the cost of their R&D and for the society to further innovate. However, this is a complete fallacy, as within the cost of R&D, there includes a system where the compensation packages, promotional cost, and political lobbying are also there. It is impossible to know, as also the advertising, the budget which they are adopting within this system is just pathetic. Taking the example of, as suggested by the Family's USA magazine, the average paid executive in top 9 pharmaceutical companies that market the top 50 drugs would amount to $168 million. That amount would go a long way in order to treat the HIV/AIDS and cancer patients, especially in Africa and India. To add insult to the injury, they are working on a double charging policy where the public have substantially paid a huge amount in the form of taxes and publicly funded research to conduct that. So the world developing population accounts to 80% but the global medicine sales is just 25%. Now the patent system is socially responsible but has a huge incentive to be financially responsible, as they make sure that their system not only exists but also increases. They make sure the creation of a grassroots level organization and the monopolization of the same in order to survive the social status and also to use that status in grow are some of the defects of the patent system. Now, replacing the current patent system with the independent non-profit agency would be much more beneficial and efficient than the current patent industry currently offers. It will work on a system of accountability, transparency, and will be much more invasive than the current patent system currently offers. It will work on a system of realism than fallacy. The profit will be little, but there is a huge benefit as humanitarian value outweighs everything. The only way to eradicate the current patent system would be to take out the healthcare provisions out of the private sphere, as it is inadequate to turn the essential life-saving drugs into the competitive market and thus thereby causing unnecessary and millions of people deaths. There should be established such a system, non-independent system, as it was suggested that secrecy undermines the scientific invention. So there should be a couple of scientists and the researchers which should work on a life-saving drugs rather than the blockbuster drugs that is produced by some US companies. If you go to the NAC and Food FDA website and you look down to top 50 drugs, more than 25 of them are often researched in the publicly funded laboratories and also in the governmental organization. So the destroying the current monopoly that the patent system enjoys. Okay. Destroying the patent system that the current industry enjoys would destroy the unlimited monopoly that the industry currently enjoys. It will work on a system where the medicines are met according to the human demand and not to the market value. As taking the example of Cipla, which has its origin of development of drugs according to the research base, where the compilation of magazines and journals they take up to invent certain drugs according to and has a generic value. Now, I would just like to say, alternatively, there would be a system where important breakthroughs should be rewarded in order to encourage the sphere of this R&D system. Not to end the debate, I would just like to say a few lines. If everyone cared, then nobody cried. If everyone loved, then nobody lied. If everyone shared and swallowed their pride, then we see the day, then nobody died. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. You repeatedly said that the government and NGOs should step up in the
Not
research
NGOs.
and development.
Not
Am I
NGOs.
audible?
Yes.
You repeatedly said that NGOs and the government should step in research and development, but the practical cost of inventing a new drug has gone very high. So how do you believe that the developing countries like India or the underdeveloped countries can invest such huge amount of money without the help of these capitalist industries?
As I've said that there include a hidden cost within the umbrella of R&D, like the political lobbying and the compensation packages. That's a lot amount of money that could go along in order to treat the cancer and the HIV/AIDS drugs, both in the developing countries as well as in the other countries. According to the New York Times, the amount which would be saved would amount to $800 to $900 million. Thank you.
When we got independence in 1947, life expectancy was just 32 years. Sir, I'm Rajat Bhavaniwal. Can I start? When we got independence in 1947, life expectancy was just 32 years. People used to die because of simple fever. HIV was nowhere in the scene. But when the first known case of HIV was diagnosed in 1986, it was equivalent to a death warrant. But today, things are much better. Life expectancy is 68.13. People rarely die because of simple fever, and HIV is no more a death warrant. All this has been possible because of innovation and invention in the pharmaceutical sector. A very good evening to everyone. I started by stating some facts which prove as to how much we've progressed in the field of medicine. But none of us sitting here would be surprised to hear these facts because it has become a general norm to think that science progresses each day. But how many of us look at the picture behind this progress? The amount of money invested and the hard work that the researchers put in. Economist Joe DeMasi of the Tufts University estimated the cost of inventing a new drug at a staggering $2.6 billion. As per the analysis of Forbes, the cost of inventing a new drug can range from $4 billion and can go as high as $12 billion. Now, if we ask ourselves, why would somebody invest billions of dollars in research if there is no guarantee of return? That is not practically possible. This is the sole reason why patents came into being, where the inventor is granted certain exclusive rights over his invention for a limited period of time so that he can recover his money and make substantial amount of profit so that the research and development, the supply of money for research and development goes on. Money not only ensures return, but also acts as a motivating factor. Most of the people here work and love to earn money. How many of people would be like a saint and say no to money if they are getting more money? So more money has always been a big motivation factor. So if we increase the profit to a substantial amount, then people will pour in more research, and the topic here says drug discovery. So it would lead to more discovery of drugs. Patents also ensure that the advanced technologies are available across the public forum and does not remain trade secrets. The motion today is that patents are not the best way to foster drug discovery. The important term here is drug discovery, which means discovering a new drug. And what are patents? Patents are only granted when something new comes up, when something new is discovered. So discovering drugs and patents are synonymous to each other in a sense. The main point raised against patents is that it is pro-rich and anti-poor. But I fail to understand when a new drug is developed, it cures a poor person in exactly the same manner as it cures a rich person. The drug does not discriminate. Therefore, as far as the affordability of the drug for a common person is concerned, this is the responsibility of the state. The Supreme Court has enunciated right to health as a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution. Therefore, the state can have certain methods like providing medicines free of cost to the people belonging to the below poverty line section. State can come up with some insurance schemes. Government can also utilize the system of corporate social responsibility, which is now given a legal status under the Companies Act 2013. But weakening the patent law is not the solution. It would literally kill innovation and would act as a slow poison to drug discovery. Just take, for example, 184 new drugs were approved by the US FDA between 2000 and 2009. But half of those drugs were not available in India even after 5 years because none of the MNCs were willing to supply medicines in a country with weak patent laws. Most of the MNCs today do not set up research facilities in India because they are unwilling, because our patent system does not support them. The point that I want to raise here is that India is a large country with huge population. Every sixth person on this globe is an Indian. Therefore, which means that every sixth brain in this globe is an Indian. And still we are known for producing generic medicines, for imitating and not for innovating. Therefore, I hope and I wish that this is high time that we realize that we need a strong patent system. Therefore, the MNCs come up, set up research facilities here, and every sixth brain that resides here is utilized, and we not only remain the imitator but become the land of innovation. That's all. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you one question. Suppose if a person begins to see the white light and starts dying, what are you going to tell him? That I'm so sorry that patents are available, I have to charge such high prices, and you cannot get this low prices generic drugs. What are you going to say?
Nobody is denying that generic drugs shouldn't be there. The topic here is that patents should be there. Patents are only given for a temporary period of time, only for 20 years. After that, they can manufacture generic drugs. And I've already mentioned in my debate that it is the responsibility of the state. When you take away patents, it would kill innovation. The state has to step up. According to even to the social contract, the state was set up for the welfare of the people. So this is the responsibility of the patents, but you just can't do away with the patents just because somebody is not. This should be the responsibility of the government.
But more than 50% of them are developed. Okay.
Thank you so much. It was an honor.
Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, my name is Sajal Sharma. Good evening, everyone. Now, patents have recently been on the news, mostly for negative reasons associated with high drug prices that people in poor developing nations are not able to afford. Now, patents often provide incentives to innovators to innovate. However, sometimes because of their monopolistic character, they also tend to impede innovation. So today we will assess whether the incentive provided by patents overweight the costs associated with it or not, in the social sense mostly. Now, from the definition of patents, patents provide an innovator a monopoly of its product for 20 years. Now, the key word here being monopoly. Monopoly is the antithesis of competition. Where there's competition, there's innovation. That's a well-recognized economic theory. And where there's monopoly, it seldom retards innovation. Further, when a person gets a monopoly, he also has a right to set prices as high as he wants. And they're often several times over the market price in terms of pharmaceuticals. Now, the $2.6 billion cost of developing a new drug is often cited by people who support the patent system. First of all, the Tufts University paper is somewhat controversial, given that it was sponsored by pharmaceutical companies partially. But even if it's so high, an economist, Dean Baker, studied the cost of developing new drugs and all the costs that are associated with pharmaceuticals. And then he came up with the conclusion that there are just no incentives for pharmaceutical companies to reduce costs. The primary thing pharmaceutical companies are worried about is getting stronger patent laws everywhere and marketing and advertising their products. For instance, most of the pharmaceutical companies spend twice as much on marketing than they do on research and development. Similarly, the pharmaceutical company spends more on lobbying than any other industry in America. Now, there are many other evils with patenting as well. We all know the evil of evergreening, where a pharmaceutical company sometimes makes small changes to a drug and then increases the patent life by 20 years. Sometimes a drug may not even necessarily have therapeutic efficacy. Now, although it is illegal in India, as was evidenced by the recent Novartis case, but since we are in a globalized world, it obviously affects Indians as well, since it affects other countries. There's also patent ticketing, where there are many people who own patents, and then getting the rights of all those patents to invent something else is extremely difficult, and sometimes even impossible, since there are patent trolls who charge extremely high prices for some patents. Now, patents have always not been necessary for drug innovation either. Now, we have seen examples of penicillin and polio, which were never patented, and yet here we are, life-changing drugs that save so many lives. And even if you see some countries that didn't have patents, for instance, Switzerland in the 1900s until 1970s had an innovative and successful pharmaceutical industry. And they did not have patents for pharmaceutical products. They only had patents for processes. And then they were one of the biggest pharmaceutical industries in the world. Similarly, Italy was a massive producer of pharmaceuticals, and they didn't have patents for pharmaceuticals or chemical inventions either, until the 1970s. And what happened after 1970s? Well, neither did innovation increase, nor did the production of drugs in these European countries, such as Italy, Switzerland, Spain, Germany, etc. Now recently, like the saddest consequence of the patent system has been that poor people from developing nations have not been able to afford the expensive patent-boosted drugs that these pharmaceutical companies have been making. Now, pharmaceuticals, all they care about is whether there's a market or not. However, the lack of market does not imply the lack of customers. It only implies an inability to pay. So now for diseases like AIDS and diabetes, there are many people in the Western developed nations that can afford these drugs. Therefore, the pharmaceutical companies are able to recuperate their production costs. However, what about the diseases such as tuberculosis, malaria, dengue? These diseases are chronically underfunded, and yet here we are. It's unfortunate that every year hundreds of people in Delhi die of dengue. Perhaps it's a sad thing to say, but perhaps it's a good thing that people from the developed nations, they caught Ebola and AIDS. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have been able to contain Ebola or wouldn't have had a cure for AIDS. Now, there are some solutions to this chronic problem of how people from poor developing nations can't afford pharmaceutical drugs. One of them is there can be a prize system instituted to innovators so that, so that a prize may be given to an innovator, and in exchange, he will not have a monopoly right over it. So this will foster incentive to innovate for some socially responsible, socially important drugs, drugs where many people are suffering, and especially drugs where poor people in developing nations are suffering from. Another thing is international institutions like the WHO may constitute or may have a fund that's provided by provided by all the nations, so that they can set up an R&D section for the development of drugs and pharmaceuticals for development. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
My learned friend,
Yes.
you remarked that monopoly of producing a particular drug stifles innovation. I ask you that it is monopoly of producing that drug. It is not monopoly of researching other drugs. Then how is it that just producing the rights to produce that drug hinders the innovation of other drugs?
Now let's consider for a moment that you got the monopoly for a particular drug. Now what if I also had been researching for that same drug and I was this close to inventing it, and yet here you have this drug and you have 20 years to do whatever you please to with it. Now if I had the drug, maybe I would have used that drug for further research and development and then innovate more new drugs. Now this is how. And also when you have a monopoly over certain things, you don't really need to make it better or anything, because you can price it any way you want. People don't care how much you price. So that's the problem with giving a monopoly. Plus, when someone has a monopoly, so you get 20 years for a drug. And then these 20 years keep adding up. We are losing 20 years of innovation for a particular thing because someone else gets it before someone else. Maybe someone else could have received or could have innovated that drug. That's
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, venerable judges. My name is
Sir, we don't show the
Good evening, judges, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Aditya Huda, and I am from 4th year BA LLB, Faculty of Law, Jamia Millia Islamia. Just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic before us today is that patents are not the best way to foster drug discovery. And I am here to stand and say that patents indeed are the best way to foster drug discovery and innovation. Now, I would request all you respected guests here to keep in mind that this debate is about whether patents lead to innovation. This debate is not about how many people have access. This debate is not about the cost of those drugs. That was the debate last year, whether patents harm a patient's health. This year, we are on a more narrower embark, that is, whether patents lead to innovation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, all of us every day wake up and toil hard throughout the day in our different professions, and we've been doing this for years on end. Why, ladies and gentlemen? The only answer to that is for gain. Yes, philanthropy exists, but ladies and gentlemen, philanthropy does not command the market forces. What has been commanding market forces is private interest. Not just that, ladies and gentlemen, let us have a look at the history. The greatest event that has changed human civilization is the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution has caused more progress for this human civilization in the past 150 years than was caused in 10,000 preceding years. And this was propelled by private interest, ladies and gentlemen. That is the hard fact of life. We all wake up, we all go to work just for private interest. We can have a look at more recent past, say 70 years ago, and we had two superpowers in the world. One based on private interest, one based on collective effort and philanthropy. Today only one stands strong, the other one has degenerated and disintegrated. Why, ladies and gentlemen? Indeed, it has come to fore that human endeavor is propelled by interest. And patents, ladies and gentlemen, are the best way to secure interest. Now let us understand how patents work. Patent is nothing but a reward to a hardworking human being for his hard work. Okay, you've worked hard for 20 years, you've burned through cash, here is a reward. So that the society collectively instills in him the sense to keep working hard. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us look at the status quo. 100 years ago, there were many informal ways of protecting intellectual property rights and incentivization, like trade secrets, so on and so forth. However, only one has stood the test of time, that is, patents. So, natural selection has also proved its way. Now, I would henceforth say that patents today continue to exist, and thus the burden, the onus of proving that patents are indeed wrong will be on the foresight. And I shall continue forward to preempt some of the anti-patent arguments. Ladies and gentlemen, anti-patent arguments today can be classified in two terms. One is saying that patents harm innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, people who say patents harm innovation see patents as a wall. However, we want them to see patents as a wall, because it is not about going through that wall. Once we have a patent over something, once we deny the general public the right that you cannot do this research again, only then will the private members be forced to adopt a paradigm shift in their thinking, in their processes, and that is what will lead to true innovation, gentlemen. The second argument which the anti-patent advocates, as my learned friend here, quote, is the alternative mechanisms. Chief among them being government undertakings. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not look at the world. Let's look to our country, India. 1990, we were faced with one of perhaps the greatest crises, that is the balance of payment crisis. The chief leader of that crisis was the fact that we had based our economy on public sector driven units. We had not allowed privatization. And then let us look at the growth chart that we have had ever since we have allowed private members, ever since we have allowed private incentivization to come into the picture. Even today there is talk of disinvestment in public enterprises because it is it's vehemently shown that it is because of the lack of competition that public enterprises faces. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, we have the community action, or say NGO action. Why NGO action cannot work? Because $10 billion is not an easy cost to pay. Not only that, even when you look at states, one-third of the countries are, the budgets of one-third of the countries are smaller than the budgets of Novartis, ladies and gentlemen. How will they do it? It's not possible. And even when you look at private enterprises, community action, most of the people are poor. They don't even have enough to feed. You look at India. We don't have enough to feed our people. How will the people give to make new drugs? Only the rich can give, and the rich won't, because the rich own the private companies. So clearly the community action has failed. Clearly the government action has failed. And it has failed. That is why patents continue to exist. If there was any other formidable market force to counter patents, I'm very sure that in the flexibility of today's market forces, it would have taken place. But it has not, because, and I will quote Abraham Lincoln here, patent.
Okay, now while you say patents provide incentives to innovate, and then the market system is the best system in the world. But what about the diseases that we have that affect developing nations, number one? So I'll put you in a difficult position here. what do you think are the answers to the underinvestment by all these pharmaceutical companies to tropical diseases such as malaria, tuberculosis, dengue, etc.?
My dear friend, I'll give a two-pronged approach to your question. First pronged approach is it is not the lack of drugs for these diseases. Malaria drugs are very much there, dengue drugs are very much there, tuberculosis drugs are very much there. The pharma companies like Novartis have invented them. One, it is the ability, it is the failure of the state to bring people above poverty line for them to afford these, and if they are below that, then it is the lack of public sector healthcare that they are not able to give those drugs to them. Innovation has indeed happened even with these diseases. And number two, I would like to redirect you to the topic of the debate, which is, it is not about whether those people are being able to afford the drugs or not. That was the topic last year. This year the topic is whether patents are leading to creation of more drugs. That and that only is the topic, ladies and gentlemen. And I believe patents indeed are the best way to foster drug discovery. In fact, I'd like to quote Abraham Lincoln, since I could not do that in my speech. He said, patents add the fuel of interest to the fire of genius.